I gotta wait. How long I gotta wait for a press record?
Go.
Welcome to the share, where Miss Dreme always has a story.
I'm Dreme, a black woman with many beautiful interconnecting identities. A few I will name at this moment as we get started on this podcast journey together. A Bostonian, born and raised in the inner city, Dorchester and Roxbury neighborhoods, to a teenage single mother who has my whole heart. An educator, I've been working with youth and children since my teenage years, and formally, I have been teaching almost a decade now. That's wild to think about. An entrepreneur, I am the founder of The Chair, a black and brown centered tech platform dedicated to supporting people on their hair journey, where you can design hairboards, connect to hairstylists, and share hair care tips for a more joyous experience. I have a workable site, my prototype. It took me 2 years to build, and now I'm on this adventure that you're currently on with me. My goal for this podcast is to share stories, black stories, educator stories, entrepreneurship stories, and hair stories. I want you to leave each episode with the opportunity to gain new insight, just a glimpse into my world or the worlds that are featured on my podcasts, a little chuckle during your day or night, possibly a little anger to encourage you to advocate for justice, and hope to continue learning and dreaming. So come in and listen to the beautiful voices in the chair as they share their stories, starting with me.
Where we share stories in the chair.
Hey, it's Dreme here, and my poem of the episode is called Have You Watched a Black Man Cry? Have you watched a black man cry? Have you? Stared into bloodshot eyes with tears emerging from the corners to the brim, refusing to dip. Just tips reminds me of the gentleness of a dewdrop on a tulip. Many tears do not flow like waterfalls or rushing rivers. Tears on a black man's cheeks are the thirst of a low tide, teasing the touch of soles of feet on the beach. Have you seen where their chin still points to the sky because patriarchy is watching? Hiccups are doing their best to hold in toxic masculinity through taut jaws, through deep breaths, through quivering lips. Have you paid attention to their shoulders, slumping over like chocolate soft-served ice cream? Notice their leaky faucets make water droplets that coat their eyelashes, becoming its starting line for the creation of intricate temporary mazes on their faces, as a black man's hands collect their eyes' rainwater, pooling puddles reflecting their scattered emotions like pennies at the bottom of park fountains. Have you listened to the sound that escapes their throat? It's their lifeboat. It sounds like shattering glass. It sounds like a screeching tire. It sounds like a hand on a hot stove. It sounds like the surprise of being burnt by a hot comb. It's pain. It's awful. Have you felt an outstretched hand reaching, craving to create a bridge? A black man can be seen in the dark with iridescent teardrops. Their sobs shimmer. Have you wrapped your arms around a black man? Felt their tears on your forehead, your cheek, your neck? Their heart has finally been able to take a breath, matching the rhythm of your heartbeat. It's okay to cry, black man. I'm here. I'm here. Love Dreme, a black woman who cries too.
Welcome to the chair where Miss Dreme always has a story.
Hello, beautiful people. This is Lorenzo Lewis. How are you? Can you please introduce yourself?
So excited. Thank you, Dreme, for bringing me on. I'm Lorenzo Lewis, founder of the Confess Project of America. I'm excited to tell more about that, but at the core, I'm a social entrepreneur that's looking to change the trajectory of mental health for Black people, and particularly people that has been marginalized and underserved in many ways, underrepresented, underinvested communities. And so I'm just excited to tell more about the work that we do. But at the core, I am someone who has lived experiences, who've been incarcerated and has been diagnosed with a mental health issue, disorder. And so I know that people like myself have not only a story to tell, but also have solutions to bring to the forefront.
I had the beautiful opportunity of meeting Lorenzo in Atlanta. We were introduced through Cheryl, and she was like, "Hey, I think there's somebody you should talk to." And then I happened to be in Atlanta for a hair conference, and you were there for work, and we went to dinner, and it was beautiful being able to chat and learn about you and what you do. And I was like, "Oh, this guy's amazing."
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I watched all your TED Talks and everything. Asking you to be on the podcast was definitely super, super important to me. So thank you for joining.
Absolutely. Love it, love it.
So I wanted to know, did you always know that you would get into entrepreneurship and mental health specifically?
You know, believe it or not, no. A lot of the reason I became an entrepreneur is because I found myself getting my master's in public administration and with an undergraduate in human and health services. I did a decade in the mental health space, but I always looked at the mental health world as I was involved as a behavior health tech and a case manager, which were really entry level roles in the field. I did not see myself ever becoming my own boss, or rather, or someone who would go out and build things and create jobs and create opportunity. But nonetheless, I saw it just as a way that I could help others, and it was also an escape while I was in school to do something totally different. I found myself really reflecting on my childhood journey. And I remember every Saturday I went and raked leaves and cut the yard at my uncle's rental properties as I was growing up. And I went to my aunt's beauty salon as a kid. And so I saw entrepreneurship done in the raw form. Two working people who one owned their business primarily solely as a beauty shop, and my uncle who owned rental properties and also had a career in technology. And so I saw it every day. I lived and breathed it. I also, again, I did it as for side money as I was, building my work ethic as a young person. And so mental health was far away. I saw it as a job, as when I got older enough to work while I was in school. And I also saw it as a way to serve, but I did not think I would become an entrepreneur in this space. I just would have probably supposed I would have owned a beauty shop, or started a clothing company, or just something else that seemed closely related to maybe the things that other people were doing in my community. And so happily, mental health found me. I was someone who went through challenges personally. I had worked in the field for a decade, so I worked with patients who had severe and grandiose mental health issues, children and adults from the age of 5 to 65. But I also had a perspective of someone who held the clipboard in the hallways and monitored patients as I walked by their room every 15 minutes, someone who observed patients and ensured that they were safe and not hurting themselves and others. All of that perspective helped me to become an entrepreneur, particularly because I really was detailed. I was the outsider. I wasn't a doctor or clinician. I was truly just a behavior health tech that made sure that patients were safe. But I was also someone who had tremendous experience with my own mental health and watching family members go through episodes with bipolar disorder and different challenges that they face with alcoholism and substance use. And so all of that compiled together allowed me to become who I am today with the work that I've been doing for the last 8 years.
Before beginning the journey of the Confess Project, do you remember a moment, that one particular patient that you were with, or that one interaction with a doctor that you were like, yeah, I could serve in a different way by being my own boss?
Yeah, a lot of it had many instances, all the way from, patients wanting to die, to wanting to hurt themselves, in a mental health hospital, to watching patients go home that was super excited that they were cleared to work because now they've made it through treatment. But I believe, one story that really sticks to me is a gentleman that really told me that I was the reason that he was able to get through treatment. That every day as he woke up and I took him out, to the rec yard to get fresh air and to take a smoke break. This was the same person that told me that, hey, if it wasn't for you, I know that I would try to kill myself in here. But I heard this multiple times. I also seen young people that was coming out of the foster care system, or that were in the foster care system, and they were in the hospital for suicidal ideation or not wanting to live longer, having issues with being hopeless, and they looked at me as an uncle or a father figure. And so, I was really empowered. It's funny having this interview. I'm just now really reflecting on the empowerment that I experienced personally from being able to do this. But again, it was just a job for me as well. And so I did this to provide for myself, to help me get through college. And I was taking care of a young child. For me, it was a job, but it was also a purpose. And so as I reflect back and I think about the way that I looked at my career and my life then, I still look at it in that way now. It's still a purpose and it's a part of my career. But it's also a path where I'm able to take care of my family and help now provide jobs for other people, provide opportunities. And so thank you for this interview, as it's allowing me to really reflect on my path to entrepreneurship.
Anytime.
Where we share stories in the chair.
Look, it's my commercial. We will be right back.
It's more than just a bad hair day. It's a journey. Finding the right hairstyle isn't easy, nor is finding the right stylist or the right products. Looking in every corner of the web gets messy, overwhelming, and exhausting. All the ads, the articles, the products, the videos, it shouldn't be this hard, but it is. And now, it isn't. The Chair. A black and brown centered platform where you can design hairboards, connect to hairstylists, and share hair care tips for a new, joyful path on your hair journey. Avoid the clutter, save yourself hours, months, and even years of research and poor trial and error. Everything you need and only what you need is in one place. Hairboards made by people like you, for you. Find the right products, the right people, the right answers for you, stress-free. Join the Chair community and make every day a great hair day. When you share your pain, you allow others to help you. And when you share your success, you help others get theirs. Lean on the Chair. We got you. No stress, no strife. In the chair. The chair. The chair. All right.
Thinking about how you were in the hospital setting, the Confess Project has conversations with barbers, and you said that you grew up in beauty shops, surrounded by beauty shops, possibly thinking about owning one. Did you know that the Confess Project would start in barbershops?
I did and I didn't. I actually thought that the work that we did would exist in the community through community events. And so I saw this vision at first through community events. So our first event was at an African American church in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Okay.
And that's where I first had my first mental health event. It was called Developing Great Minds Together. That was my first event where I brought police sector, churches, organizations. It was a back to school event. It was a bash. I mean, we took up the whole street and we had a good time, but it was around mental health. And this was in 2017. The organization started in 2016. It was our first event, and I was given about $2,500 in sponsorships to make this event happen, and was able to bring thousands of dollars in in-kind support, even more sponsorships just from future opportunities. But that's when I really knew that this was worth it. I was able to bring together almost 100 people in the rain at an African American church in Little Rock, Arkansas, and packed the room out in a small church and really had panels, food, workshops, wellness, booths, everything you could think of, we provided it. At that moment, I was really intrigued to take it a step further.
Mm.
And so, I danced around with, well, how would this work look moving forward? And so I had a colleague at the time who now serves as a state representative for the state of Arkansas named Tara Shepard, who encouraged me to think about mental health through the lens of narrowing down my niche.
Mm.
And so at the time, she talked about me being a Black man, how my story and what I'm doing can be powerful to other Black men and young Black men, that there was a need for this. At that time, she had a program, she was working with young girls. And so I took her on the offer. I said, you know what? You're right. Let me work on particularly focusing on Black men.
Mm.
And so I did. And my first event was at a library, and no one showed up. No men showed up. Was totally embarrassed, to say the least. I felt bad. It was, something's not working. Early start in the entrepreneur journey. No real marketing, no real understanding about how to, put something together. And I just got out there and totally failed at it. At least I felt like I failed. But which I know now, that's, you're truly piloting something when you're doing something that way. So I dug deeper and was like, well, how do I find men? And I said, well, I have a friend that does literacy at the barbershop. And his name is Alvin Irby, and Barbershop Books. So shout out to Barbershop Books. So really inspiration to the Confess Project. And so I called Alvin. I said, hey, man, I got this idea about mental health and Black men in the barbershop. What do you think? This is in 2018, 2017. And as we started to kick this off, and, he was like, man, it sounds like a good idea, but I don't know. I do literacy and it works pretty well, but I'm not really sure how mental health really works, but it's worth the shot.
Mm.
And so from there, I began to explore. I reached out to some barbers that I knew, that I went to school with first. Like, hey, who do I know? And they totally turned me down. Like, hey, man, my clientele is not interested in this. I don't know if I'm interested in this. So I received all the denials. And I finally found one barber that owns a barber school called Goodfellas Barber School in Little Rock, Arkansas. And he gave me my first opportunity and allowed me to use one of his barbershops. At the time was in a shopping mall. We hosted it on a Friday evening, which is a longer story because that was one of the most high-level anxiety attacks that I ever had because I was so nervous and so anxious. But it turned out to be such a beautiful and powerful event. And that's what kicked off the work in the barbershops, is that I went through denial first. I found this one barber who believed in it. He owned 6 barbershops, a barber school, and was like, hey, my work is your playground. Anything you want to do, let's do it. Let's make it happen. Let's make a difference. And because of that one yes, working in his ecosystem has allowed for us to now work in 200 barbershops, 52 barber schools across 35 states and 63 cities, reaching 500,000 people per month and 5 million people per year.
Let's go.
So, it's all about really taking that chance and utilizing that one yes to making that yes happen over and over again. It has not been the easiest ride, but I will just encourage folks that have listened to this to seize the first yes. Really take advantage of that. He had 6 barbershops in a school, and we've multiplied that to 200 barbershops in 8 years. And so 5,000 barbers trained, and it's impeccable numbers to say the least, but it was the one yes that allowed for us to dive deeper and to go further. So thank you for allowing me to share that. It's been a while since I took a walk down memory lane.
No, absolutely. I'm curious, when it comes to people saying, how can mental health be talked about in barbershops? What does it look like? Is it really helpful? Because, a lot of people think salons and barbershops are just places to hang out and just very transactional. What is the critique that you have to that?
Barbershops and salons are truly it's the crescent and the fabric of the Black community, Black barbershops. But it's even the fabric of America when you think about in terms of the civil rights movement, when you think about in terms of the historic connection to, Long ago, barbers and stylists were like they did skincare in the barbershop. They were our first doctors. They did a myriad of different things earlier on that took care of people, medicine to skin to addressing health things, grooming. So grooming is, and a lot of the spirit has been lost in the barbering industry, but barbers were our first doctors in a lot of ways. When you really research barbering from a long, long time ago, obviously the field has become so different when they changed policy and the way that they've trained with barbering and cosmetology. But when you go back further on, it was truly a field that took care of people. Even far as back to for Black people in earlier slavery days, that was the first job that Black men had, that they had to shave their slave master's beard. When you think about that as a part of the commerce and economic opportunity of entrepreneurs, I read this in a book called Black Barbershop by an author, Quincy, and I'll get his last name before we get off here. But it's a book that talks about barbering historically all the way back to early slavery days. So it's really powerful. The gentleman's last name is Quincy Mills, and it's called The Black Barbershop. And it's really cutting along the color lines, Black barbers and beauty shops.
Oh, and if you're interested to learn more about my experiences as a Black woman and educator in Guangzhou, China, I wrote my first ebook titled Nowhere and Everywhere, Captured Emotions of a Beautifully Broken Love Story. It is on lulu.com. Take a read and see some beautiful photography of mine. Enjoy the rest of the show. I definitely want to read that book. When it comes to, you've been doing this now for 10 years. Do you feel like there are lessons or advice that you see over and over coming again when it comes to mental health showing up over and over again? Do you see repetitive things that you're like, hey, this keeps showing up in mental health conversations in barbershops?
Yeah, that's an interesting question to answer. I see it more like a lot of barbers that we've worked with and stylists really would argue that they've been therapists their whole time, their whole career. They would argue that this is something they've been doing, and they have. They've stopped violence. They've cut people hair before a funeral. They've went to graduations and went to people that was having children, babies that were being born, folks that were going through divorces. They've been on the front lines of people's lives every day. I mean, barbers can cut a kid's hair from the age of 7 to 8 years old all the way into their, in their early 20s before they leave to go to college. And they're able to see that young man that they started cutting their hair in their early, way before preteen years as a kid, become an adult. And so a lot of it is that they've seen and endured and witnessed a lot in someone's life, in the community. They've watched multiple political leaders go in and out of cycles when it comes to the local community and laws being changed and policy being changed. They've seen how it affected other folks from the front lines. And so when we think about that and we shape that around what they've witnessed, I believe that barbers and hairstylists they're truly connected to our fabric of our everyday life. I also want to argue that, and I want to push that this is the same way for grocery stores, for tattoo shops. This is the same way for cornerstone liquor stores. Obviously, we know that they distribute substance, right? That may become a substance use disorder or an issue for folks. When we think about these institutional places in our community, they hold the history and they truly hold the solution, and they can be a part of the solution. So I believe we have to think about investing in our institutional community places like barbershops, because it may not be barbershop for some communities. It may be the supermarket of the store or the one gym that all the young people go to every day in the rec center. these are the places where really they see a lot, they hear and endure a lot, but this is also where social change really happens. I just think that it's really vital that we think through that for different communities and how that may look. But these are the beacons of folks that's really going to make the change that I feel is going to make the change in the world that we live in today.
It makes me really spend a lot of time thinking about the definition of community. It doesn't seem like a big deal when you're a kid because you're placed in so many different communities, so it just all seems so natural. But then when you become an adult, you realize you're searching for community all the time in all these different spaces, from the gym, from the street you live on, from the neighborhoods and the free events, and always trying to do a hobby. A hobby is a thing, but a hobby is contributing to the creation of a community. Thank you so much for sharing your stories in the chair and just taking the time out. I truly, truly appreciate you being here.
Yeah, no, it's been a real gift and a treat, and I'm super excited. We're going to continue to stay connected, stay motivated, and empowering each other on this journey. So I'm really grateful. So again, I really appreciate you and for what you do and for giving me this space to take a reflection back from where I'm at now. The movement is not where it used to be. It's still at the community level. My work is not as at the community level because I'm focusing on scaling and growing and extending the work. We have 30 team members, and it's just much different than when it was just me and two people, when I was by myself, rather. It's so different. So I thank you for bringing me back to a foundational place, why we even started doing this and why hair is even important in mental health. Because now as I go out, the little time that I have, and now as I'm able to encourage my team members and folks that's doing our barbershop talks and people that's doing our trainings, hey, this is why this is important. You know what I mean? So, and let's not miss this part of it.
Welcome to the chair, where Miss Dreme always has a story.
Thank you for listening to an episode of The Chair. I, of course, would love your continued support. Let me know what you think of this episode by doing all the things. Subscribe, comment, and come back next week, every week. Enjoy the rest of your beautiful day, or if you are like me, enjoy that moonlight and that one star under all your city lights. Love you. Talk to you later.
The chair.
How long I gotta wait for a person to record?
Go.
We support her. Shit.
Do your...
Welcome to the chair, where Miss Dreme always has a story. Where we share